questions.
Welcome back, everyone, to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. We also got a special guest in Gordon's house. It is a bird that will be chirping for the duration of the episode. Gordon, good morning to you and your new pet. I didn't know you got one.
I do not have a new pet. I just have thin walls, and I live basically in a giant forest filled with birds. Like yesterday morning, I went out to my front porch, and there was probably like 50 birds just hanging out, and like 10 squirrels. I think there's something about the tree that's near my house that maybe has some good bird food in it. I don't know, but there's a lot of birds around me, so I think it's bird season. And I apologize for their chirping, but it's
So
fine.
they're outside,
You just
not inside.
They're outside. There's no birds inside. I don't keep birds inside my house. That's
Okay.
also a weird pet when you think about it. A pet bird, you're just like telling them you can't do the one thing you want to do. Like it's just, why do people have pet birds? It's a weird pet.
So you're pro birds spreading their wings and flying.
Yes. I mean, what do you think? Like cat, dog, that makes sense. Do like even like the like turtle and like iguana, like the little reptile pets, where you just keep them in like a illuminated casing? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Fish, that doesn't make sense. But fish don't know. I think they don't know that they're trapped. So I think that's fine.
but birds do.
Birds definitely know they're trapped. They're like in a
Okay.
cage.
Yeah. Well, so are the fish. They're in a box, a rectangle.
Yeah, but the fish's brains have no idea. They think they're in the wide open sea.
Okay.
They forget that they're in a. Yeah, I think fish are dumb.
If,
That's what I've heard.
if you have,
I
if you have
could
a
be wrong.
gigantic koi pond, that's one thing. But if you just have a little tiny tank, that's tough. Yeah, I'm not a big pets guy in general. I've had to have that conversation with my kids a couple times. Luckily, my son is
Ooh.
very allergic to dogs, so that was a really short conversation of, hey, remember last time you touched a dog at a park and your face was swollen for 12 hours? So we can't do that anymore. My daughter's not, but she lives with my son, so that's just the reality of it. The email address, flowtrackpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get to some emails today because people wrote in responding to the comments about what they would do if they were in charge of promoting Eugene 2022. And the goal was to get the most interest on the World Championships in the United States. We'll read some of those emails. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to chime in the comments, say nice things about Gordon. There's a couple stories I want to get to here. First of all, we got half marathon world record attempt. It appears in the works in Valencia because everything is a half marathon attempt. We have a new runner joining Pete Julian's group. And then back to the half marathon, we got a situation where World Athletics is not ratifying the women's half record, the current record. And then Rotterdam Marathon, which is this weekend, live on FloTrack. Do you want to start there, Gordon, with the Rotterdam Marathon? We got a pretty solid field here. The field's always good in Rotterdam. On the men's side, Kip Serum is the course record holder. He's entered 204.11. And then Bashir Abdi of Belgium coming off the bronze medal in Tokyo, set to race.
Yeah, the season of marathons every weekend continues. Where Rotterdam Marathon is this weekend. Last weekend we obviously had Paris and the Cape Town. Next weekend it's gonna be Frankfurt Marathon. Then the weekend after that it's New York City. It's just marathon after marathon after marathon. The Rotterdam Marathon is live on FloTrack for U.S., Canada, United Kingdom, and Australian viewers. So if you live in one of those 4 countries, you can watch it live on FloTrack. So if you're from Jamaica, we apologize, but we will get back to you with the results. Because you can't watch it live. So
We'll make it
anyway.
up to you at some point. Yeah, I'm very obviously interested in Abdi, right? Like coming off of the Olympic performance. This is a fast course, so he already has a really good PB of sub 205. But I want to see what he does after the best race of his career in Tokyo. And the field is always deep there on the women's side of things. Not the big names that exist on the men's side, but perhaps there's a potential breakthrough brewing there on the women's side. So we'll talk about that one on Monday. Um, women's half marathon has gotten very interesting. So over the past couple of years, the women's half marathon world record seems to be broken every couple months. But the most recent world record by uh, Yelemzirf Yehuala from Ethiopia appears to have not been ratified, Gordon, by World Athletics. Apparently, there's been some reporting that her 63:42 was done on a course that was short, so it will not be certified. So the record will instead stay with Ruth Chepnegich above 64 minutes. And where this really gets interesting is Yahuwah is set to run this weekend in a half marathon in Valencia against Latensipet Gidey, who obviously is the world record holder at 15K, 10K, and has tons of potential at the half marathon. So a little bit of intrigue going into a half marathon world record attempt this weekend.
So the course was found to be 54 meters short, and she ran 18 seconds faster than the world record, right? Yeah,
Correct.
63:44, world record 64:02. Do you think she could
Yes.
have ran another 54 meters in under 18 seconds?
Yes. Otherwise, she would have had to have fallen down and slowed down at that pace. However, for the purposes of records, you have to run the time. Now, if this was just you and a friend and a couple buddies sitting around and saying, "Ah, man, I ran this course. It turned out to be 54 meters short, but can you give me credit for being a sub 64-minute half marathoner?" I'd probably say, yeah, you probably still would have got it done. But for the purposes of the world record, the distance has to be the distance. Otherwise, where do you draw the line? Do you have to do a mathematical formula every single time to figure out what pace they would have been at? What if it was 12 and a half miles? You got to draw a line somewhere. It's a bummer.
Is this the equivalent of a college man running 3:42 in the 1500 and then calling himself a sub 4 miler?
I think it's the equivalent to them running that fast at a track that's later deemed to be short, which, you got some suspicions out there. No, I think it stinks because she obviously had the ability to put down a huge time, and you want to make sure that you have a ratified course. I think they're going to go sub 64 this weekend, and I think that record was potentially going to get broken anyway. I think Gidey is just almost a lock to smash this mark anyway, but it's just interesting that the news comes out right before we have this run.
So does this mean the mark is just doesn't exist? Like does
Correct.
she like at all? It's not even like an unverified ratified mark?
So we might get sometimes they put the little asterisks by it, or I know on all time athletics they have that category where it's like suspicious performance or non-certified course or something like that. But for the purpose of the record books, yeah, it doesn't exist. So it goes back to Ruth Chepnegich's mark, like I said, which was 64:02 from Istanbul, which was earlier this year. You only need to go back 4 more months to get to the world record.
So it doesn't even count as like I feel like they need a so she's now that mark does not exist in the top 10 anymore.
I think once they explained that it was short, I mean, let me look at the. Yeah, I mean, they give a little asterisk here on all time athletics for uncertified course or uncertain certification. But at this point, it's not uncertain. It's certain, or it is about to be certain that it was short. So why would you keep it in there? I guess
Well, this is
be, because it equates to a faster time. I guess you could put it in its own little category and say, hey, FYI, this time would have been the world record if the course was measured correctly based on what we know about running. However, there's so little need to do this because it's the women's half marathon and it's going to get broken several more times. in the next 12 months. So we're going to forget about this, if not this weekend, shortly after.
Well, I want to keep thinking about it for a little more moments because all right,
Okay, go ahead.
if she would have ran 64:10 on this
Yep.
course, this shortened course, that would have stayed in the record books because they wouldn't have tried to ratify it. You don't try to ratify
Mm.
non-world records. So if she would have ran 64:10, she would have forever had that on her resume in the record books as a top 10 performance all time. But because she ran the fastest all time, then they start looking at it. So
Mm-hmm.
the person, okay, it seems kind of weird, right? That we're only measuring courses that result in world records. Isn't that kind of weird? And also,
No.
how do you, why are we
Well,
measuring it after the fact? Why don't they measure it before
yeah.
the fact?
That's a good question. That's the question. Maybe they didn't think that the world record was in the offing. And she ran it in a race that doesn't see record attempts, too. If she had run it in a Prague or Vienna or Istanbul or Valencia, there would have been more of an assurance that it would have been accurate. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they didn't measure it until after the fact, just because it's difficult to measure every single course. It's more surprising that you'd commit to it without knowing. But look, she put her faith in the meet organization, the race organization, to make sure it was the full distance, which I don't blame her for doing that. I think that most people would do that. But you're right. There probably should be some sort of safeguard against this, so you don't run 13.05 miles before finding out it's too short.
If you're her, how do you feel about it? Are you like devastated?
Well, you're bummed, but the good news is you have to wait, 2 days before you can break it again. So you don't need to stay motivated for very long. You got this. You got this Valencia race where you have top flight competition, and I'm sure the Valencia course is fast because every course in Valencia and fast. Probably everything in Valencia is fast. Probably the service at the restaurants is fast. The cars probably drive fast. Just everything coming from Valencia over the
Yeah.
past couple of years has been fast. So this is the golden opportunity. I would double check with the race management ahead of time and get them to pinky swear that it's the full distance. Because if you do this again, then I'd be really pissed. So I get them to sign a sworn affidavit that they've measured it 12 times with 4 different Garmin's, steel measuring tape, wet bulb thermometer, 4 different cars, and every single precaution is taken to make sure that it's the accurate distance. But I'd feel okay. I feel okay because you get a chance to right the wrong really quickly.
Measuring it with a steel measuring tape would be cruel and unusual punishment in my mind. Imagine having to like every 25 meters or every whatever how long the measuring tape is,
Yeah.
redo it again for 13.1 miles. That would be awful.
Yeah. Listen, I would if I were her every single time I enter a race, and maybe more. Listen, courses have been short in the past, but this is a pretty high profile example. Maybe this will force people to double, triple check, especially if they're doing it in a race that's not a traditional big half marathon or big marathon. Make sure you got it in writing ahead of time that this thing has been measured all the way. Now I know after world record they go through everything with a fine tooth comb and make sure all the precautions were taken. We've seen records been disallowed because there wasn't drug testing at a venue, which is interesting because I'm guessing they had all that set up because they didn't say that was the reason it got tossed, but they didn't have their course sorted out. 54 meters is a decent enough distance to where you'd wonder, man, how closely did they track this thing?
But is it though? It's 13. How many meters is a half marathon? How many meters is a half marathon?
21,
I'm googling.
21K, right? So 21,000.
21,000. I'm getting exactly 21,097.5. So they were off. All right. So what's
I mean, it's
two for
not off by a
twenty-one
ton,
oh nine
but I'm
seven
saying
point five
it's
minus 54? They ran 99.74% of the course.
yeah, yeah. I guess
So
what I
it's
mean
pretty good.
by yeah, and that error margin is is when you put it in those terms, not that big. But I guess what I'm saying is, and I'm sure there's a lot at some sort of error because I'm sure there's courses that are. Wait, what'd you say it is? 21,090. What? What was that total?
21,097.5 meters.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's some that are 99. I'm sure there's some that are 92 and probably 89. All I'm saying is 50 meters is a significant enough margin to where it fell outside their acceptable error rate.
Question: do you think so? She's running in 2 days, right? She's gonna run another.
Hmm.
She's like entered to run a half marathon.
Yep, Sunday.
Do you think she's going to have a finish line tape that's 4 meters on the finish line tape, and that she's actually going to run an extra 54 meters just as a precaution and
Just
have like
keep
a
going.
second time? Just keep going for
Keep this.
another like 100 meters. It's like, hey, I know just in case it doesn't count, the clock is still going. I'm running. Think she'll do
Keep
that?
Strava rolling, and then just submit your
Yeah,
Strava
keep.
time if that one
Yeah,
doesn't get accepted. Yeah, it's a good strategy. I just think Valencia's probably got all this stuff buttoned up on the front end. I know they'll go back and measure it again probably because that's. I wonder what is the protocol. So like if someone sets a world record in Berlin marathon, do they go and remeasure Berlin every time? I don't think they do that.
and how do they measure it? Like the course is
MapQuest.com.
probably taken,
They just
but
go
like
on
I
MapQuest and they
guess they
put
just
in.
know. Yeah, MapQuest, yeah. But like the barriers and all the like angles are all gone by the time they're there to ratify it. No, right?
Right, and that's why they probably sorry. That's why they a lot of that stuff gets done ahead of time, and they put that. You've seen those races where there's the blue line, and that's the line that they measure from. Like that's the distance. So they're taking all the usual turns, and that's you get all those debates about look at Galen Rupp, he's running the tangents out there. Yeah, I don't. Admittedly, this is a blind spot for me. So
We should get out there and measure
yeah,
the Eugene course for Worlds to make sure with the 25-foot steel measuring tape. That's gonna be
yeah,
my my goal by
your
2022.
co- your contribution. I got a comment from Judson. He says the 2007 Tallahassee Marathon got remeasured after first woman got Olympic trial standard. Ended up being 183 meters long. That's a huge difference. 183 meters long. That's tough. So
Oh, long. Ooh.
imagine missing the trial standard, and then it ended up being too long. That's rough. Yeah, 183 meters at that pace, 50 seconds. That's significant there. All right. Well,
Here's my
hopefully
idea.
leads to the
This is how
the
we
the world record getting broken this weekend.
this is how we solve the problem. We come out with a system that is universal for everyone. We have them like kind of run in a geometric shape, maybe say an oval, and we can kind of be like 8 people wide, and we'll make sure it's
Mhm.
what like a quarter mile long,
Mhm.
and we'll
Mhm.
just be consistent, and everyone will do that, and we'll have everyone just. We'll even have like the field events do everything inside of that oval, and
Mhm.
yeah, we won't have any of these measuring issues because they'll be running on what like a let's say 400-meter circle slash oval.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be
What
good.
if
We
it's
just do all the
windy?
races on that. If it's windy,
What do we do
we'll come
then?
up with a rule. We'll come up with a rule saying like, hey, if it's a certain meters per second over two, doesn't count.
Okay.
I'll call it track and field. That's what we'll
Is
call it.
there some
Call
sort
it
of
track and field.
barrier to keep people from running inside the track, taking a
Yeah, it's this
shortcut?
thing that just is notorious for twisting ankles in workouts.
Okay.
That's what we call it. And then yeah,
And what if someone steps over that, but they do it on a straightaway and they weren't forced off versus someone who does it on the curve? Then what do we do?
call it the Robbie Andrews rule of 2017. I think that happened. I don't know. There's too
Yeah.
many. Yeah, I don't know. We just make sure that the British aren't in charge of the disqualifications like they were in
The
Birmingham
world
because that
indoors.
was
Yeah.
ridiculous. World indoors.
You were
Anyway,
there for that. You got DQ'd.
I know.
A lot of people don't
I
know
got
that
DQ'd.
from
The
from the
DQs got
media. So,
DQ'd. Dude, it was fun. It actually became like you got every new DQ became more and more exciting because you're like, they're not going to do it again, and then they do it again. You're like, all right, that's enough, and then they're like, nope, we're DQing the winner this time. Oh, Paul Chalimo, you're DQ'd. You know, I
Brazier.
wanted
I
to
remember.
shout like false DQs to get everyone riled up, but I didn't have the heart to. But I was always like I started making it my duty to be like the first to report DQs because I was like, there's gonna be
Mhm.
one, and I would like refresh. I'm like, we got DQ, and it's like the guy from like Portugal that no one knows. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, but there was like 30 plus DQs in the 2018 indoor championships. It was insane.
Yeah. It was really, really difficult to watch because the race would finish and you'd have no idea what the result was, and then you'd wait and you'd be like, "Oh, more DQs." And some of them were obvious, and some of them were just completely ridiculous that had no bearing on the outcome, and a lot of them were in opening rounds. The Chalimo one was in the
Yeah,
opening round. Am I remembering that right?
yeah. Well, the Chalimo one was bullshit because he did exactly what Mo Farah did at the 2017 outdoor championships. And Mo Farah did not
Mhm.
get DQ'd, but Paul Chalimo did. Both of these events happened in the United Kingdom, and I have a feeling there was some
Where they
bias
use
going
the
on.
same rules. I think it's
No, I
funny
think
that
they let Mo Farah get away with it and didn't let Paul Chalimo. That's what I think.
maybe officials don't think they DQ enough outdoors. So then when indoors rolls around, they say, "This is my time. This is my season to shine. Let's just start getting the red cards out right and left." There's been too much abuse of the laws outdoors. We're gonna take command here.
So it's like the end of the month for a police officer. They have to get their speeding ticket
Quota,
quota.
yeah,
Yeah,
right, right.
these meat officials are like, we need to get our DQ quota up. So we go all in on Birmingham indoor championships. Yeah.
Wasn't some of it too? Brazier got DQ'd because he cut in early. Wasn't it
Yeah, there's a
because
bunch of
there was a
that.
lot? There was some confusion about where the cones were placed, right? As well.
Yeah, and then there's also like right of way type bullshit DQs, like, oh, you cut off the athlete, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
guys, it's like a 6 lane track. It's 200 meters long. There's gonna be some movement, and you can't
yeah, it's
just
unrealistic.
like they were trying to social distance before 2, 3 years before the pandemic. Basically, they're like, I
Yeah,
know you
yeah, yeah.
can't sit, guys, stay 6 feet away from your competitors before you can pass them. It was stupid. It was stupid.
They were making it like that short track speed skating in the Winter Olympics, where there's a million DQs, one fall and three DQs every single race. It becomes
Yeah.
unwatchable at a certain point because then the person who crosses the line fourth wins the gold. You're thinking to yourself, what am I watching here? Okay, enough of that. Enough reminiscing about the good old days, Gordon. So Valencia half on Sunday, Rotterdam Marathon on Sunday as well. So a lot of road racing, as Gordon mentioned. Let's go back to the track though for a minute. News here that Shannon Osika has joined Pete Julian's group. Got a lot of new members recently. Pete Julian's group has Jordan Hesse, and then also in the mid distance side of things, Sinclair Johnson is there as well. So they got a pretty solid mid distance contingent now with Jessica Hull there as well. Osika, fourth in 2016 at Michigan, stayed with Coach McGuire, her coach at Michigan, and ran really well. She made the finals for the U.S. in the 1500 in 17, 18, 19, and 2021. She ran four flat. She was fourth this past year. A bit under the radar, Gordon, because she didn't win an NCAA title and she didn't join one of these high profile groups. But I feel like we always say Shannon Osika's name at least once or twice every outdoor season because she's always in that mix.
Yeah, there's always like those people who kind of just like you said, kind of go under the radar due to circumstances of you know not having that marquee win. Um, but she's always, I think you meant she's always been making U.S. finals, and eventually one's going to open up. And you have to think we've talked about this. Women's 1500 with no Shelby Houlihan is wide open, right? You could
Mm.
there's really two spots that are pretty much going to be anybody. I mean, Corey McGee and Heather McLean got those two spots, earned it 100% at the trials. But you don't look at those two athletes as like locks for the next 3 years, the way, you know. So I I could think like just every year for the next 4 years, we're probably gonna have a different woman take one of those two spots. And
Hmm.
so Shannon's kind of setting herself up for potentially going all in, switching coaches to try to be one of those two women to get that the second or third place finish at the USA trials.
And there's no guarantee that it'll happen. There's no guarantee that it'll work. Just because you switch coaches doesn't mean you're going to get faster. But this will obviously put her in this training group with these other two women who have run very very fast. You know, right at four flat. It's tough to get attention in that event. If you go back and think about it, this is the event that has had American record holders recently, medalists, names like Rowberry, Houlihan, Simpson, and you're right. Now we're seeing a little bit of fraying of that for a variety of reasons, and the opportunity is there for not just her, but now her new training partner, Sinclair Johnson. But yeah, you obviously got to feel good about Purrier going into 2022, but the rest of those spots are wide open. What do you think in general about Pete Julian's group, which is still named Pete Julian's group? I feel like they need a name. They put out that commercial with all the waves crashing and the llamas and other animals staring at you and everything like that. They need a name. Let's get on that, please. But what do you
I
think
think
about their decisions for how they're adding folks?
I mean they're I'm not against what they're doing. I don't know. I'm kind of Switzerland. I have no really opinion. There's nothing that's like whoa, like they're not like hey, we're signing three Bowerman athletes or something like that, right? Or like
Yeah.
taking like away from another group, or hey, we have you know, I mean, who was like the best college kid coming up? Like got Danny Jones from
Hmm.
last year, right? So there hasn't been like a big splash, I would say. There hasn't been like a whoa moment.
Hmm.
But maybe at the end of this school year, there's going to be a woman or two or a man or two who kind of are like that next big prospect, and they choose group over Ritz's group over the group out, the Puma group out on the East Coast over Hoka, over Brooks Beasts. So they just have yet to really get the a wow person, you know. So right now they're kind of
Well,
having
it's
the established that they already had the NOP
yeah.
holdovers and a couple like we're getting Jordan back and we're getting Shannon Osika who's been in the pro scene for 5 to 6 years already, but they haven't got like that big like boom. I mean, I guess technically, I guess they did take someone from Bowerman and Sinclair Johnson, but Sinclair Johnson isn't really Bowerman in my mind. She was there for a year or two. Like
Hmm.
taking someone like a Carissa Schweizer or at least Cranny, that would be a big like boom. I'm
Right.
saying the word
They
boom a
made
lot
they
in
made
this
teams.
situation.
you're just you're just like a cooking show host at this point. I think it's interesting
Yeah.
the different tactics between getting somebody who, and they'll probably get a recent college grad as well too once the college season ends, but that versus getting someone who's in their late 20s who's trying to get that extra boost to get over the top. It's just a different approach that I think is interesting.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I have another topic we can talk
And
about.
sure.
So, do a little preview of the greatest cross country show that ever lived, NCAA FloTrack. Goes out every Tuesday on YouTube, the main FloTrack YouTube channel. This past Tuesday, I talked about tiering the teams and seeing kind of who I think is contenders, pretenders, etc. But as you know, we just had Nuttycombe and Prenats, which is a big qualifying type meet. So The question is, who are going to be the 31 teams that actually go to Tallahassee in November? And so I
Mm.
busted out the Colos calculator, dusted it off, started it up, and there's some interesting team results that I'm seeing for the first round of who right now is projected to go to NCAA's. And I want to talk a little bit about. I'll hammer it more next Tuesday when we go through the whole list of 31 on both men's and women's sides. But on the women's side, there's a regional that could have 8 teams qualify. Can you guess the regional? You probably can.
Mm.
Can you guess the
8
regional?
teams qualify from a region. Is it West?
So that's you showing your Oregon bias, but actually West, I have only having 2, so they're actually
Okay, hold on.
not scoring
Let
any.
me get
Yeah.
another guess. Great Lakes.
Okay, you're really bad at this game.
Hold on, hold
What
on, hold on,
region
hold on.
has like the 3 of
Mountain.
the best 4 teams? Yeah, Mountain. So Mountain
Okay,
right now.
boom. 3 guesses. It only took me 3 guesses.
Yeah, there's 9 regions, so it took you 33. You got 3 of the 9 opportunities. Anyway, the Mountain region, Colorado, BYU, and New Mexico, obviously, right? 2 of those 3 will
Mm-hmm.
be top 2. The other third one will just get in, obviously, with like a million points. But then the Utah women, remember they got second at pre-nat, so they've beaten a lot of people. Northern Arizona women, the Weber State women, the Colorado State women, and the Utah State women. I'm seeing 8 teams make it out of the region. And I tried to reach out to a couple coaches to see if that's a record. They didn't know, but I don't know if they can think of a region having 9 in the recent history. So I think if it happens, if New Mexico, BYU, Colorado, Utah, Northern Arizona, Weber State, Colorado State, and Utah State all qualify, it could be a record for most teams from a single region going to NCAAs.
Boom. Mountain.
I thought it was interesting.
Stand up, Mountain Region fans out there. This is your year. This is your time. The air is thin and the berths are plentiful. Tallahassee.
So there is a not a negative consequence, but domino effect of the situation. So if we do get 8 teams from the women to qualify from the Mountain region, there's a strong chance likely they won't get 4 individual qualifiers because individual qualifiers need to finish top 25 in their region. And if
Right.
8 of the teams are going, the odds of 4 individuals from not those teams being in the top 25 is going to
Yeah.
be hard, which means that opens up 4 more slots into the other regions to get more individual qualifiers.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
All right.
anyway,
Which is where the West comes in. Like I said,
West, there you
18.
go, the
That's a
West.
bad. In retrospect, that's a bad pick. Now that I just think about it, I'm just thinking about the top 25 in my head. I don't really know why I went with the West. And then I went with the Great Lakes to overcompensate. Great Lakes, though, like Big Ten is always solid. Big Ten always sends a bunch of teams. So that's why I went there. And I didn't
Yeah,
think you'd
Great
bring it up if
Lakes,
it was the
I
Mountain.
have 4. 4
I
Great
was trying to be a contrarian because I thought, oh, there's no way he's bringing it up if it's just the Mountain. So that's why I thought, oh, he's bringing it up because it's a different region than we're thinking of. But I should
Yeah.
have just trusted my gut. Should have trusted my gut. So who are the 8 again? Can you read through them again?
BYU, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah. Those are like the top true 4. And then NAU, Weber State, Colorado State, and Utah State.
Mm. Lots from the state. Is that 4 from the state of Utah? That'd be pretty crazy. Utah State, BYU, and Weber State. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Bring up the
Beehive
state
State.
rankings.
Beehive State. The
There'll
air
probably
is
be more.
thin,
There are going to be more.
but the berths are plentiful. Donovan Mitchell,
I can see
Rudy Gobert.
there,
Where are you at?
we're going to have we're going to have more women's teams from the state of Utah than from the state of California.
Whoa. Whoa. Big.
That's
Big.
crazy.
What does that say about where we are? Interesting. Interesting indeed. You're
Uh,
right. Wow. Some state rivalries there. I like it, Gordon. Very good. Very good. Do you want to read some of these emails?
let's do it.
So
You can read. You're
let's
the
go
reader
into
of
the
the group.
email inbox. Yeah. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com is the email address. Jacob suggests get people interested in Eugene 2022 advertising some sort of betting similar to how Gordon did it during the Olympics. What do you think, Gordon?
We should get some partnerships with some big bet groups, and I can go on and I can do all the betting content you need for all the crazy uh, single day parlays that I'll go all in on. Have the Gordon Max specials, boost the odds. I'm willing. I'm willing to partner. I'll be your spokesperson for June 2020 gambling.
Have you been
We'll
watching
have
any of
like
the baseball?
I've been watching a little bit of baseball. I'm kind of baseball's dead to me because what the Phillies do to me every year for the past like 15 years. But yeah, I watch a little bit of baseball.
Sometimes when
Why?
a player comes up to bat, they'll put up the betting odds they hit a home run right there on the screen because they've partnered with a betting service. And I'm just thinking about that in track and field. They go to the start line in the 100, like winning time, sub 9.8, minus 250 right now if you want to get in on the action.
That'd be awesome.
It'd be easy to pull off. Again, you have to have a certain volume of bets to make it worthwhile, but there's no shortage of opportunities there for the general public
Yeah,
to
I
bet.
mean, betting. I would love the whole betting time situation, like especially like in a 1500, because you're
Mm.
like, all right, on a tactical race or like a fast race. That would be fun to bet like winning time, and there's just so many
Yeah.
opportunities to like get the Olympics, mainly two things: picking winners and picking people who will medal. But there's so many other permutations of how to bet a race. That'll be so much fun to watch. And is gambling legal? Is sports gambling legal in Oregon?
Yeah, because the Oregon Lottery put out a bunch of those odds for the Olympics. So I think they're fine to do it. I just don't know. What surprised me with the baseball stuff is that the broadcast partner was doing the advertising for it because obviously they're getting paid to do it. So
Yeah,
these are the American League and National League Championship Series. These are big moments, and these batters are coming up to bat, and then on the screen are betting odds that they'll get a hit or that they'll get a home run. So I think part of it is just dictated by, does the network broadcasting your event have a partnership with one of these, betting apps that would allow it? Because if they have that, I don't think there's any sort of issue with doing it at that point.
yeah. I do. If they did partner with me to like be the spokesperson for gambling, there definitely will be a Gordon Max special where it's plus 277, uh, so that people can win back the amount of money that I lost in the Olympics. That's going to be the gamble 100
it's
bucks,
just a
win back Gordon's losses.
it's just a whole bunch of 3-person parlays that you did that you thought were locks, and then
Yeah,
they came down to the last person, and the favorite got upset. That's the Gordon Mack special. All right,
dude, I could
next
have like
email.
$2,000 if it wasn't for Johannes Vetter and Grant Holloway. The two
Mhm.
most lock of all locks are the reason why I'm in debt.
Yeah, Vetter. I
It's
think
okay.
we described Vetter on the preview pod, I think, as the lock of all locks. No way this guy loses. He just That was bad. That was bad. Okay, Jerry writes in um, an idea to promote track pre 2022 Worlds. He says a month before the champs, have a meet to determine the world's greatest runner, jumper, and thrower. So 3 separate categories. Select the best 8 athletes in each of these 3 categories to compete over 4 events. Oh, okay, so he's combining them. The winner to be determined by World Athletics point system. The meet is to be run over 2 days on a weekend. Ideally, this would be a Friday night and a Sunday twilight meets. The 8 best runners to compete over 800-mile 3K, or to make it really interesting, 3K steeple, and then the 5K. Um, so then he says the 8 best throwers and jumpers to compete in 4 of their disciplines, males and females to compete at different times during the meet. The 2 weeks before Eugene Champs, the world's best sprinter meet is held. At this meet, the 8 best male and 8 best female sprinters compete in the 1, 2, 3, and the 4. Again, the winners determined by the World Athletics point system. Potentially an issue of points don't exist for the 300. The meet would be 2.5 to 3 hours, giving the sprinters about 45 minutes rest between each event. The space would be filled with other events and athletes having their final lead up pre-world champs. The athletes that miss out are the hurdlers and the steeplers. Option for them would be to compete together in these events: high hurdles, low hurdles, and then the 2K steeple. At the world's best sprinter meet, the winner gets crowned as the world's greatest hurdler. So this is interesting because it's a play on a question you always asked of if you had a sprint meet right now, where who'd you put in it? You said like Curly, Lyles, Norman, Bednarik in the 1, 2, 3, and the 4. I think you might have just said 1, 2, 4. Who would win? So it's touching on something that we've said we're interested in already. I don't know how well it would work for the distance events, but for the sprints it would be fun because they have that
Yeah,
versatility. We're seeing the
definitely.
versatility.
Oh, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, because all those people, and put Grant Holloway in there too, because he can run a fast 4, could probably still run a fast 100. Yeah, throw in Rye Benjamin. It would be
Mhm.
fun to have like the same athletes all compete in like 4 different events, and then it's kind of like a half of a decathlon, but all focused on what they're actually good at, which is like all in the same category. Um, that would be cool because then you have like people winning and then losing to each other. It's not just a one race and it's over. It's more than just 2 where there's not just a double. Like I think that would be fun. Yeah, and maybe like they try to make it interesting where they run the 1, 2, and 3 first, and then based off of how those go, you kind of stagger them in the 400 according to
Mhm.
you get like a certain meter
Yeah.
lead based off of how you did in the other 2. So then basically the winner of the 400 wins the whole thing. You do the same thing for a 5K, right? You get a lead based off of how you do in the 8 mile and 3K. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Again, the thing is having familiar names compete frequently, I think, is a recipe for getting people excited. And it's tough because track wants to include everybody, but and people often specialize. But I think seeing the same people compete over and over again, at least throughout a year, is not a bad thing. Track purists are big, oh, we're getting bored of that same matchup. But if it's a good race and good competition and the people have interesting personalities, I think you could catch on. Like on the women's side, if you had, Richardson competing frequently, it would be amazing. This lends itself perfectly to the men right now, though, because we happen to have guys who are good at the 1 and the 4, and at the 2 and the 1. So it just sets up perfectly for the current crop of U.S. sprinters.
All right, so let's do a virtual meet right now. All right, we got the 8 best male distance runners from 800 to 5K. I think would we both agree that Jakob Ingebrigtsen would win this competition?
800 to 5K, yes, Jakob's the
8
winner.
mile, 3K, and 5K. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. And then Safan Hassan would win, right?
she'd win every event involved in it. Not only would she win the overall title, she'd win every single race contained within. The men's sprints, when you asked me a couple months ago, I said Curly. I'll still stick with Curly right now as the top guy. It would be fun though. It would be fun to see people who don't even run those events primarily, like a Benjamin or Holloway, mix it up in there. It would be cool to see what Lyles could do in a quarter. It would be good to see what Michael Norman could do strength over all 3 events. But I would take Curly right now.
I would take Curly, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bednarik would win. Better last quarter. He just hasn't done it since college. And Bednarik is better than 200. So you have to think
Yeah, that's true.
Curly would get him in the 1, Bednarik would get him in the 2. That 300 would come down. I think it's kind of even in the 4, even though Curly should get him in the 4. but Curly hasn't been
Yeah.
training like a 400-meter runner for the past year. So maybe I'll give advantage Curly in the 4, but then in the 3, I would give advantage Bednarik. So I could see it going Curly win the 1 and the
Yeah.
4, Bednarik win the 2 and the 3, then it's
That'd
going
be
to be
so
based off the
weird
places of other people. Yeah.
to have one person win the 100 and the 400 and have another person win the 2 and the 3. I can see the scenario. I don't think you're just making it up just to be a
Yeah.
contrarian. I could actually see that playing out. Yeah, but Bednarik would be a good pick. And if we go international here, I mean, it'd be fun to see DeGrasse in here too, push his range. On the women's side, I think Elaine Thompson Hurrah would accrue enough points, but someone like Sharika Jackson, who's got history as a 400-meter runner, would be a threat too, and Christina Mboma too.
And I wouldn't want to do it off of points. I would want to just do it off of place. I don't
Okay.
care if you win by an inch or a mile. You get the same amount because then it becomes like it weights them too much. Like you just want to weight a win as a win, no matter if you're running fast or slow. So that's how I would look at it.
Did you just quote the Fast and the Furious there?
Hell yeah, Vin Diesel. He's
Okay.
my. I got a poster of him on my wall. I'm just kidding. I do not have a poster of Vin Diesel on my wall. But there are people out there who
Cool.
probably do have posters of Vin Diesel on their walls. And you think about it for a little bit. And there's probably someone who got it on their wall when they're in 2001 and it's still on their wall. And they're now thinking to themselves, I think it's time to retire Vin Diesel from
He's,
my wall.
no, he's still making movies, and he still doesn't care if you win by an inch or a mile. All he cares about
True.
is the course 54 meters short, because if so, it doesn't count. But he doesn't care about the inch or a mile.
Doesn't count.
Not one little bit. So women, would you go with Sharika Jackson or would you go with Thompson Hurrah? I mean, Gabby Thomas would be interesting for the U.S. Miller Weibo would be. This needs to happen. The more I talk about this, the more exciting it gets. I mean, McLaughlin would be fun.
Yeah. Throw an Allison Felix. She can try to run with the young bucks. I mean, Christine and Boma would be the best, but I'm not sure if she's going to be allowed. No, in this situation, she's allowed because we're the
We're
commissioners,
making up the meet.
and
Yeah, we're making up this meet.
Christine and Boma can definitely run the 400 in this situation. Yeah, just basically, I want to see a group of runners compete in 4 different events over the same weekend, and it's like just kind of enclosed, because
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
kind of be cool. Yeah, like and find a way
Eight.
to get like do like a 4, 8, 15, or like, yeah, 4, 8.
To be honest, I mean that's
I mean, I'm
fun.
trying to
That'd
feel
be
like what.
fine. That's just weird though. That's kind of. I feel like with this current group of sprinters, it would be meaningful. Watching Ingebrigtsen run would be fun, or watching Emmanuel Career or Thing Mo run those events would be fun. But I think for the sprinters, it would force them to run events or get pushed in events that they haven't before, and they would reveal themselves as being insane talents in those events. I have genuine curiosity on the sprint side. What would happen? That would be my focus. The other stuff would be cool too, adding in distance or whatever hurdles. That's fine. But yeah, invite 8 people. Do you do 2 heats? That way the inside lane isn't that big of a deal in each of these? Or do you want to do it all in place
No,
so you couldn't, I guess?
no, you gotta let people be on the inside lane. It's just random draw. You got luck. It's sorry, bad draw. You're only on the inside lane for one of the 4 events. So you have to be in lane 1 or 2 for one event. But then once you're in lane 1 or 2 for one event, then you switch. I guess except for the 100 because that
Well,
doesn't matter.
well, the 200 would be tough. I mean, yeah, the 100 don't matter. 300, you get 2 straightaways in one curve. I wonder if there's a
You
way
run fast. World records
you
have
do
been
the 100
broken
first.
in
Well,
in
outside lane.
bad lanes.
Inside is where it screws you. But I'm saying, what if you run the 100 and use that to seed? So you don't have any
Sure.
complaints at that point.
But we need to make
You
this
got to
happen.
literally
So how do we make this happen? So when would people be willing to do it? Is the big question.
call
Because
all the people in
I'm
your
sorry, like
who's the fastest person in your phone? Call them, and then just start it there. Text them, DM them, do whatever you got to do.
I'll do that. Here's the thing though, like the people that are in charge try to come up with these ideas. Like they did that USA versus Europe competition. Remember that they made like a fake
Yeah.
USA versus
Yeah.
Europe dual meet. And they try to do these little things. Obviously, World Relays is kind of like a way of doing something like this. But just finding a way to do an invitational where we take the 8 best female sprinters and the 8 best male sprinters and have them do this 4 race competition each
Yeah.
over. I guess would you do it over a 2-day competition?
2 days.
I'd say you do it over
2
2
days.
days. 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much money of appearance fee would you need to give these 16 athletes for them to actually go all in? Not only appearance fee to like try and then winning fee. Basically, it wouldn't be appearance fee. It would be like you get this much for 8th, this much for 7th, this much for 6th. So like if you finish dead last, that's your appearance fee basically. How much money do you think we would need to put in for these athletes to try?
Are we saying this is after the season? So this
No,
is
we're
like
saying
2
this
weeks, 2
is
weeks post World Championships?
sure, yeah. So World Championships is
Okay.
in July. So this is like
In place of
between
a
World
Diamond League
Championships
final,
and the Diamond League
basically.
final. Yeah,
Yeah.
between this and
Yeah.
the Diamond League final. Would $100,000 for the winner be enough? I think so.
No, I think it's gotta be more, but I think it'd be less than 1,000,000. I think
Dude,
what
you
you
win
do
like
is
50, 20K for a Diamond League victory or 10K for a Diamond League victory.
yeah, I think they'd be worried about injuries because 'cause they're doing 4 events. I think what you do is you do an appearance fee, you do a bonus for each event, so every event winner gets money, and then the overall winner, there's a massive, massive prize. But to keep people invested all the way through, you do an individual event race. So there's a say the 200 is last, or you're saying the 400 is last. You wanna make sure that the 400 runners who are way out of it still give it everything they got in the quarter. They get the event bonus as well too. That's what I would do.
Well, no, but you want to make it so you're still fighting to get to 4th place over 5th place. Like you need to say you get 10 more grand
Well,
for every
right.
place.
Sure, but you also get
Like,
the winning bonus.
yeah. What if it was like you get a
Who
100 grand for a win, 80 grand for second, 60 for third, 40 for fourth, and then 30, 25, 20, 10. So 10, you get 10 grand if you get dead last.
Yeah, just add another 0 on that, and we're all good.
That does not enough. That money doesn't exist.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying
This
if you
would be the
wanted to
most watched thing
compare.
because the more and more I think
Here's the
about it,
thing
this
though.
needs to happen. This needs to happen.
Here's my thing though. I think adding another 0 obviously is an extreme amount of money, but a lot of money gets poured into things that are supposed to be multi-year things that never happen or they flame out after a little bit. This would be a short term. This is just going to be a huge influx for a one time event. We're not trying to make this a thing that happens every year. It's
Yeah.
just going to be and it would just take some super rich person who's obsessed with track and field to make it happen. What would be right now the 8 invites? So let's do the men first.
Okay.
I'll write these down. You got Curly.
Invite Fred Curley, Noah Lyles, Andre DeGrasse,
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Bednarek,
NAB.
Michael Norman, Rye Benjamin. So at 6. And then the final 2. Hmm.
You
I
said
was
you
gonna say
wanted to do
Trayvon,
Grant.
but I don't think Trayvon should. Oh, Grant Holloway. Yes, Grant Holloway. So at 7. And then the 8th spot, we let a local runner compete just so we can see how fast
No,
these
we
people
don't.
really are.
No, we don't. We don't
No,
do that.
no. The 8th
Warholm.
spot, I was thinking Warholm, but Warholm isn't running fast in the 100. Like it's just you want someone who can be competitive in all of them. Like
Arian Knighton. Just throwing out names here.
Nine. Can you do a 400?
Anybody can do a 400. Uh, Marcel Jacobs.
I guess we'll do. Ooh, this is what we
We'll
could
leave it
do.
open.
No, this is what you
We'll
do.
leave it
No,
open.
I changed my idea. All right, so you have these seven, and then you have the wild card to screw it up. So you put Trayvon, or I guess Marcel Jacobs, but we're gonna put Trayvon. Put Trayvon, who only gets to run the 100. The 200, you have um, who's
Oh,
like
you have
a
someone come off the bench.
yeah. You just
That's what
have
you're
a
saying?
person who's just only running that one event.
Oh,
So
okay.
who would be
Yeah, so
who's
I
only
don't.
running the 300? You put Warholm in the 300.
You put like
In the
Knighton in the
400,
two.
you put Knighton in the two, and then the 400, you put
Gardner, Stephen Gardner.
Gardner. So you have
Yeah.
they're there to kind of mess it with it, right? So it's like, hey, if you want to win, there's going to be a Trayvon in your race. There's going to be a Knighton in your race. There's going to be a Warholm in your race, or there's going to be a Gardner in your race.
Gotcha.
So that's better. So you have
Got
the four people who just do the one race, and they can still win to get the bonus, whatever, for their one race. And then the
it. Hmm.
seven people are doing the all four races.
All right, and then on the women, we do Elaine Thompson Hurrah. We do Sharika Jackson. Did we do Shelly Ann?
Dude, hold off on Shelly Ann. Shelly Ann might be
Okay.
my individual that you throw in. So Sharika, Elaine Thompson,
Shawnee Miller-Weibo, right?
Shawnee Miller
Like you
Weibo.
have to. If someone's
Yeah.
good at really good at two events, right? Like you kind
Yeah.
of have to include them. Mboma,
Christine Mboma,
Abby
Gabby
Thomas,
Thomas. So that's five. We
5.
need two more.
Sydney.
Um, Sydney, yes. And then
You go
I guess Shelly Ann.
Felix.
Put Shelly in.
Do you go Fraser Price? Okay.
You go Shelly Ann. So those are seven. And then you have Felix just do the 400. You have
Carry in the 100.
Sha'Carri in the 100. 200, you do like, I guess, Prandini. Oh, no.
Let me look at.
Dean Asher Smith. Put
Okay.
Dean Asher Smith in the two. And then in the three,
Oh, Paulino,
Paulino. Yeah, sure.
silver medalist in
Boom.
the 400.
Dude, this
All
is
right.
perfect.
Good.
I'm loving
We
this.
figured it out.
We
All right.
figured it out. Let's send the invites.
This
And
is
then we'll
it.
figure
We're
out the
done.
pay
All right.
structure.
A lot of money. Just a ton of money.
But this is
Well, next time we
the
have any.
test. We do it with the sprinters, and then if it's successful, we run it back and we do a round with the distance athletes.
So what we need to do is get one of these people on the show and just ask them what it would cost to get them to do
Will you
something
do
like
it?
this, and then use that as the baseline.
Yeah.
And then we need to multiply
I
that
do
by
think there's a number.
16. Of course, there's
Okay,
a
do you think
number.
there's
There's a
a
number for everybody.
but
Yes,
but is there a
100%.
number that everyone will be willing to like go in? Like, I'm sure you could be like, "Hey, Gabby Thomas, if we give you this number, will you do it?" She's like, "Yeah," but then when you go to Shelly Ann, she's gonna be like, "No,
Right, but
there's
there's
no
a
like."
number. But if Shelly Ann says yes to it, then everybody else is going to say yes to it, or whatever.
Yeah,
Whoever
but it
the
has to be the highest
person who asked
number
them.
that someone agrees to.
Yeah,
It has to be equal for everyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. I just think there's enough money, other than giving up a shot at an Olympic gold or a world championship gold. Every other meet or every other thing is negotiable at that point, and there's a price for all of it. There's probably a price for an Olympic gold, but it's a number that's so big that it's not even worth talking about. But there's a number out there where you can get all these people together to do this, for sure. I mean, the ideal situation would be, if we're talking about promo for Worlds 2022, which is where this conversation started, is this would happen a month or so before World Championships. But I don't think that'd be realistic. I think a better way to get it done would be to doing it after, because they wouldn't be worried about
Yeah.
getting hurt.
You got to do it after Worlds, but not too far after where they're kind of just there to like celebrate. You know, you want them to actually care about winning and losing.
Yeah, we might need
So
to make the men's field more international. We only have DeGrasse in there internationally, whereas on the women's side, we only have 2 Americans in there total.
yeah, but like, I
Interesting.
mean, if we're just gonna be honest, it's kind of. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
maybe
U.S.
take
heavy
out
right now.
Trayvon and let Marcel Jacobs be the 100. But you gotta have Trayvon in there, man. Come on, Trayvon's good.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't counting the wild cards at this point.
Yeah, the wild cards are more international. I like the idea of the wild
I
card
like,
too, because then it's like, all right, Warholm is added to the field. Okay, now Alison Felix is added to the field. Okay, now
and they don't
Shikari's
know
added
who
to
it
the field.
is. They don't know who it is.
Ooh, they
It's
just
the
show up and you're like,
masked
oh,
runner.
and they're in the middle. They're in like the middle lane, so they're like, what? Oh, it's a masked
Yeah.
runner, and then they realize like, who was it? Oh,
Oh my gosh, it's Carson Warholm.
no, we're
And then
no,
Ryan
we're not gonna
Banksman
go
just
that.
stares at him.
We're
No,
not
okay.
turning this into
Just thinking
like a
about it.
Las Vegas magic show. We're keeping
Okay.
gotta keep the sanctity of the sport at least a little bit alive.
No, no bad ideas in the brainstorm, Gordon. We're going to keep
Okay,
throwing
that's
out there.
true.
All right, let us know what you think. FloTrack at gmail.com. That's it for the Friday show. We'll be back again on Monday. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to the FloTrack Podcast YouTube channel and also the FloTrack YouTube channel where Gordon is putting out his NCAA XC show every week. I'll also have a race breakdown up there looking at Jakob Ingebrigtsen's European indoor record from way back in the winter. Talk about how it reveals something interesting about the 1500 right now. So keep it locked on the channels. Thank you to Colt for producing. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.